I remember the first time I had my very first PI planning back in 2013. Back in those days, it was really strange and an unheard concept to have 100 or even more people in a single room to do a planning event. So I was really nervous. I mean, anybody was going to turn up to this event that I had been convincing all of the executives was a great idea. Now, truth is, I didn't know what I was doing. In fact, in those days, very few people had even run such an event themselves. And now I had 100 people turning up to this event because somehow I'd managed to convince these people that it was a great idea. Have you ever done that? And then I started to doubt myself. I'm like, am I really good enough to organize and coordinate and manage and support over 100 people? Now, 100 people for me in those days was a large number. Now it's a relatively smaller train. But I started to get doubts in myself. And this is the planning series I wish I had all those years back when I started. Hi guys, I'm Ahmed, a skilled Agile and productivity coach based in the UK. On this channel, we cover productivity, agility, and even joy in the workplace. In this particular PI planning series, I'm going to cover step by step what you need to do to have not just an okay event. I don't know about you, I don't want an okay event. I want an amazing event. I want a best implementation event. And that's what I would like for you as well. So from today, in this video, we're going to start walking through step by step a real example, which obviously has been changed to protect confidentiality and other elements, but it's going to give you a true flavor of all of the steps you need to go through to implement an amazing PI planning event. Now, I intend to release a video every week on this series until I'm satisfied that we're done and hopefully until I've answered all of your questions. So I hope you found this useful. Now, this video series is mostly for beginners. So if you're an experienced PI planning person or scaled agilist, you may want to skip this series. But I hope everybody finds something here that they find useful. Okay, so let's get started. So here I was, 2013. I'm pretty nervous, as I said. I'd managed to convince all these people. Have you ever been in that situation where you so focused on convincing somebody to do something and you're almost sure they're not going to do it, and then they actually turn around and go, yeah, okay, we'll do it, and then you're like, oh my God, what have I done, right? So what made things worse is my boss really wasn't helping. He's making me even more nervous. So my boss is a finance guy, so he says, Ahmed, okay, so this 2-day event, yeah? I said, yeah, 2-day event, yeah. So how many people are going to be in it? I said, everybody. So what do you mean everybody? I mean, everybody on this train that we're going to form is going to come to this planning event. So he says, well, do you know how much this is going to cost us? And I'm like, no, it's not going to cost us anything. Don't worry about that. We're just using our basement, right? So we'll just use our own facilities. It's not going to cost us anything. He said, oh. He kind of looked away and he's like, oh, okay. Have you ever had that sort of like people like, where did I hire this guy from? Well, if you haven't, I got that look, right? It's like, where did this guy come from? Okay. Now pay attention. So he walks me through this calculation. He says, okay, so how many people are we going to have at this event? And I think it wasn't 100. I think it was about 80 people. So 80 people, as I said, was a lot of people for me even then. So it was about 80 people, I say. He said 80 people. Okay. So you got 80 people. And so their daily rate on average is about £500. Okay. £500. Okay. So that, Ahmed, is £40,000 per day, right? And I'm like, okay, that sounds quite a lot of money. And he says, and you want this for 2 days, right? 2 days, yeah? I said, yeah, absolutely. We need to do it in 2 days because it's what's actually needed. It's the standard best practice. You know, we want to do it in 2 days. So he said, okay, so you don't need to be a math genius to work out how much this is going to cost, right? So it's like you're going to spend £80,000 on this planning event. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I suppose you're right when you think like that. So he says, you better make sure you don't muck this up, because not only my boss is going to be there, my boss's boss is going to be there. There's a whole publicity that's gone around this event. And I'm like, why did you do that? And he's like, well, if we're spending that kind of money on it, we want to get the kind of visibility on it. So that's one of the challenges we have, right? Whether we like it or not, a lot of the PI planning events becomes a key kind of cornerstone event where a lot of individuals, a lot of senior executives and other people and the entire train, they're counting on us to do an amazing job during this PI planning event. So we need to make sure that we do a fantastic job. Now, in those days, there weren't any videos on YouTube. There was hardly anybody that I knew who was doing it. It was just theory at that time. I just want to give a big thanks to Sergi Dallacchiani, I think it is. Hope I got your name right, Sergi, for triggering me with this request yesterday. And so I hope this video serves you with walking through this real example. But at that time, I had no idea what I was doing. But what I decided to do is, you know what? I'm going to manufacture Tony Robbins style positivity, right? Just as I'd learned, right? I'm going to be positive and I'm going to continue learning step by step as I go along. Now, this video series is built upon what I learned all those years back then. And since that point till now, all these years, over 8 odd years, is covering all of the things that I learned around PI planning. Now, as I said, it is for beginners, right? So I'm not going to go into the most advanced topics, but you will get a good foundation. And I believe if you cover all of the elements that we've covered in this series, you will be ahead. You will definitely be in the top 5% of PI planning events out there today. Okay, I know, tall order, but let's get started. Okay, so in this series, I'm not just going to cover the template, the examples. I'm also going to give you templates and other ideas and concepts as well. But before we get stuck in, the question is, what is PI planning? So it's a high-level plan for 8 to 12 weeks for an Agile release train. Okay, so what is an Agile release train? So an Agile release train is simply a collection of between 5 and 12 Agile teams. Now, this is a rough guideline. As I'll show you in the real world, you might have less than that or you might have a little bit more than that. In practice, I've gone from around 3, less than 3 is probably not worth your while. And I've gone up to 16. Beyond 16 starts to become very challenging to manage and support that train. Okay. Now, of course, this is context dependent and it depends on your style and your appetite for risk. Okay. But that's just my real world insight that I just wanted to share with you. Okay. So that's what PI planning is. It's this high level plan, 8 to 12 weeks for this Agile release train, which is a collection of Agile teams. How is this quite different though? What is different about this? What is really different about it is that, you know, if you're from a waterfall world or a traditional project management world, what you'll be used to is this idea of a project manager or a program manager sitting together with maybe a few other individuals, and they will come up with this huge plan for everybody. This is a completely different concept because here we're bringing everybody on the train into this planning event so we can get the collective intelligence, the collective insights. We get buy-in now into this plan. We look at the viability of the plan. And we can also work out whether is there any dependencies across the different elements of the plan. It just makes for a better planning, more realistic, and more likely to achieve your targets. That's why you can justify that 80,000. Well, the way in which you would justify it, you say, well, if we cut out these and save these 2 days, are we likely to achieve these objectives 2 days earlier? And you know the answer to that is probably no. Okay, so that's what PI planning is, right? So now, when should I use it? Okay, now that's important because there's a large overhead. There's a large overhead in the number in terms of the number of people that are going to be coming there. There's a large overhead in terms of the overall cost of the event. You also need to set up the event, etc., etc. Now, if you're doing this in the kind of COVID time period in terms of when this is actually shot, during this period, you need to now set up the remote planning as well. And I'll cover that a little bit during this series. But there are other videos that you can click on if you want to learn more about remote PI planning immediately. So just click on the link over here. Okay. All right. So Next question is, when should I use it? Okay, so you should use it when you have a problem or a mission that you cannot use a single team to solve. Okay, you need multiple teams. As I said, you probably need at least 3 or 4 teams to make this viable. You need multiple teams to solve the problem. So that's the first characteristic. The second characteristic you need to have is is when the actual value or what you are actually releasing requires the interaction of multiple teams to deliver what's called customer, user, end user, or business value. Okay, so the value cannot be delivered by just a single team. It needs these multiple teams to work together in a coordinated way. Okay, and that's when you would need PI planning. The third thing you need to do is you'd want to make sure for it to be viable for you to set this up is you want to make sure that the size and scale of the problem is not something you can solve in a week or so, right? Or 2 weeks or even a month, right? It's probably not worth the effort that you're going to go into to set up an event like a PI planning event if you've got a problem that can be solved in a very short period of time. Okay, so there's these 3 things that you need to bear in mind. You have a problem that can't be solved by a single team, you've got value that spans multiple teams, and you've got dependencies across these different teams, and also you've got a problem that spans multiple sprints as well. Okay, so the question you may say, okay, I got it, Ahmed, PI planning, it's this high-level event, it's for a collection of it's for a large train or for a collection of teams. You've got this problem that can't be solved by individual teams, and you've got these 3 characteristics that we just walked through. But why do I actually need this? Well, the reason why you actually need it is because when we've got multiple teams and they've got their own individual plans, if they're to do the individual planning, I've got plan A, plan B, and plan C, right? What's to say they will hang together, right? So if I've got a dependency on another team and I'm in one team, what's to say that dependency, it has been taken into consideration into the other team as well? And also, more so, what's to say that it's given the right priority? When you're looking at a large organization, a large enterprise, many teams may have different pulls and requests coming on their time. And this means we need to coordinate and align the prioritization of what we actually do and the goals as well. Okay, so that's a kind of quick definition of PI planning. So now let's walk through a real world example. So many years ago, I was working for a large law firm. They would provide books, legal books, case laws, precedents, reference books to lawyers. And especially in the olden days, what you would have is you'd have your typical stereotypical lawyers sitting there at the desk, right? And behind there'd be these rows of stacks of books and books and books and books, right? So those books are what this company used to put together, okay? Now, this new breed of lawyers were coming through, these youngsters coming through said, hey, I don't want to look through all of these books, thank you very much. I'd like to have, Google for lawyers, thank you very much. So that's effectively what they were trying to do. They're trying to build a Google for lawyers, if you want to think of this in a kind of simplistic way. So now what you've got these hundreds of editors that would be compiling the cases that were going into the different tribunals and into the different courts, and they would be bringing them together, they would be compiling all of these findings, and they would be digitizing them so all these lawyers could actually search across them. So, okay, so let's make up a fictitious example, all right? Let's just say we're creating a new product line, okay? We need to create this new product for lawyers and in a new region. Let's just say we're doing this in Australia. Okay, so we'll say we're going to do this in Oz. And basically what we have is we've got new content, we've got new customer requirements, we've got new systems, and we need a new search capability just to keep things interesting. Okay, so to keep things simple, we're going to say we have just 3 teams to make it manageable for this example, right? In actual fact, you'll probably have more, but I want to simplify, and I think you'll get through the essence of what's actually required with just 3 teams, because we can show the interrelationships there. Okay, so let's just say we said we've got 3 teams. So we're going to say we have got a team that does the editorial. So these are the individuals and the team that's going to be responsible for putting in all of the legal content from the case law. We've got a fabrication team. This is a team that is responsible for parsing the data, cleansing the data, building the relationships of the data, both the syntactical and semantic cleansing and integrity of the data. And then you've got the final team, which is the actual customer facing portal. So we'll just call that customer system. Okay, so we'll work out what that looks like as we go along. Okay, so that's the scene now. So in the next video, we have, we're going to cover how we take these 3 systems, okay, and we're going to see how we're going to form them into teams. And we're going to do this in a real way, not in a textbook way, because I don't want to teach you this kind of, oh, here's this theoretical Pollyanna kind of stuff. I want to show you what's the kind of problems that you're really going to learn and you're going to face in the real world, and stuff that you are going to need to overcome. Now, if you want just the standard textbook theory, you've got scaleagile.com, scrum.org, you've got Scrum Alliance. I love these sites. I recommend them. You can go there and you can pick up a lot of the standard theoretical stuff, right? But that's the theory, great foundation, but how you apply that, that's what we're covering over here. That's where the magic happens, and that's where all the growth and all the fun actually happens as well. Okay, so we've set the scene today. We've discussed and we've looked at what PI planning is. We've also looked at basically when you should use PI planning, right? And why you should use it as well. So I hope you found that useful. This is the first of many videos. Subscribe if you've not subscribed already and you're interested in getting the full video series. I intend to be releasing this 1 video a week until we're done. So keep growing, continue learning, and most importantly, don't forget to bring the joy. Thanks very much. See you later. Bye.